Welcome to Insight and Influence, a podcast presented by C&G Strategies, bringing you insightful conversations from influential people, including government officials, industry leaders, and advocates from across the state.
Today we have Marc Little, president of Emery Construction Services. Welcome, Marc.
Thanks, Rob.
And Jason Tigano, he's the executive director of Level Equity Building.
Hi, Rob. Good morning.
Jason, thank you guys for joining us today. We're here talking about housing issues that are going around the country. You guys have an idea, not beyond an idea. You guys are working on some changes to the housing market. First off, can you just tell us what's happening in the housing market? Like all these politicians talk about affordable housing or whatever the new buzzwords are today when it comes about housing and the lack of housing. Can you paint us a picture of what's happening not only globally, but also here, specifically here in the Western Pennsylvania area?
I'd love to, Rob. Affordable housing has a couple of different definitions depending on who you talk to and who you ask. A bank might say affordable housing is a third of your income or your net income not to exceed a third. When you talk to government, affordable housing tends to be single-site, multifamily, income-restricted rental property. And so a lot of times when you go, or government or community groups go into communities and you hear them say, we want affordable housing, the answer from the government side is there's one fund available, and it is usually for rental properties. Affordable for us at Level comes through homeownership, and the affordability really comes through the mortgage and the 30-year fixed rate of how that structure works for an individual or for a family. So
you guys put a program together to help people buy their first house, essentially.
Yes.
Right. That's correct. And so you, and why don't you tell me, walk me through that process and our listeners this process on, what have you done to date and so forth? Like, how does this work?
So what we do is we partner with communities that are looking for home ownership in their neighborhoods. We then work on asset mapping that community. Some of it is an inventory of the property, and we're trying to identify tax delinquent vacant parcels or lots that we could build on or rehab. Simultaneously, we're working with community groups and administrations to do outreach to their existing community residents who are currently renting. We're then trying to sort of match and marry those existing residents who rent, who are paying, we were talking about the price of affordability in the region. It's anywhere from about $1,200 to $1,500 a month in rent. And from our point of view, that could be a mortgage. Yeah. And so we're really trying to match these buyers to these houses that have been vacant and tax delinquent eyesores in our communities for at least 2 or 3 years.
So you're bringing them back, putting them back in the tax rolls too.
Yeah, we are.
Which is massive for these communities,
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So Marc, in terms of Emery, I mean, you're the construction, you do construction services. So, you're seeing, you probably saw this as well, but from your vantage point, like, what do you see?
Well, it was interesting because when Jay first came to me, he had a thought to do 1,000 for sale home.
Wow.
In a project with the scattered sites. One of my specialties is renovation. So a single site renovation project is right up my alley. I've been doing this for over 35 plus years. Starting to show in my face, obviously. But at the end of the day, it's a challenge. Just the inconsistency within the residential market of finding quality contractors, having a consistent cost structure and pricing. They vary. I work with a lot of different community groups throughout Allegheny County and southwestern Pennsylvania. But Jason and Level has to me shown head and shoulders the real appetite to challenge this, to really conquer this challenge around affordable housing through for sale. The things that we look at was just starting with the buyer itself, right? Between the buyer and the real estate stock, and understanding that when you look at what that word affordability means, I laugh because when we first sat down with the former county exec, Rich Fitzgerald, Jason and I sat with him. We said we want to do more affordable housing. He says there's plenty of affordable housing in the Mon Valley, and you start looking at it. So yeah, Rich, there's plenty of housing stock, but there's not quality living stock where it meets the mortgage and the price point of the buyer that we focus on, which is 60 to 80% median income. We can work with those up through 120% median income, but the real focus, I think, around what Jason's trying to do is reach some of those tougher markets of getting folks off the rent and getting them back into affordability and securing hopefully future equity within housing.
And you guys have had success. I mean, you've actually,
Yes.
Is there an example of one of your projects that you guys are working on?
Well, so we have a project right now that we're working on in cooperation with McKees Rocks Borough and a lot of nonprofits in the neighborhood. We've acquired 10 properties. We have completely rehabbed and sold one. The buyers have been living in there for about a year now.
Wow.
They have started to participate in the community. They're volunteering at nonprofits and just really ingratiated themselves into the neighborhood. So on one,
I'm sure the borough's loving this too.
they're
right?
loving it.
Yeah.
Loving it.
So we have 9 more. We're about to start construction on those. We've identified about 80 residents that want to be homeowners, and we're currently moved them through our qualification process that will ultimately culminate in them getting a mortgage to buy one of these 9. And so we're excited about what we think is going to happen over the next 10 months as we really start to look at this. You know, we were talking about taxes earlier. So over a 10-year period, these 10 houses will generate approximately $250,000 in taxes to the Stowe Rock School District.
Wow. And this is a community that is having a hard time getting people in the community, right? So
Yes.
you're driving growth.
That's right. And when you start looking at some of the advantages of what the for sale housing does is impact, not only does it put the tax rolls, but it keeps stability within our community, right? It affects other kind of categories that state government, federal government would be paying into, like school systems, things of that nature, because the typical renter is probably in and out of that community within 1 year or their lease term, whereas a homeowner obviously is more rooted. And when Jason and I looked at identifying certain communities, that's where we kind of start looking at the unbalanced nature of their community. They're back in the 70s, I think McKees Rocks, 70s, 80s, McKees Rocks was more like 90-10. 90% home ownership, 10% rental. Now it's flipped. It's almost 90% rental with 10% home ownership. So it's devastating to the community from the tax base.
Yeah, absolutely. So next steps, what's the challenges you guys are facing?
So for us, it really is, Mark alluded to it, it's scale. We wanted to try to do 1,000 homes. We'd like to do that. We have a goal of 10 years to do that. So we sold our first one. We're on our road, but we need support. We need money. We need policy changes. We need all sorts of things to help just bring this together. We think we have the answers around how we start to qualify buyers, how we start to identify real estate. But it's understanding the nature and the scale of the problem, because it's a lot bigger, I think, and a lot more complicated than people tend to realize.
So the listeners, where can they learn more about this program that you guys are offering? Do you have a website?
We have a website, levelcommunities.org. And you could go to our website if you're interested. There's information tabs. If folks that want to sign up, they can click the Get Started button, and you can sign up and potentially buy a home from us.
And just real quick, just so I can add another question, Jay, is how limited is the program? Are you restricted to one community or many communities?
We are not. So Level is set up to be statewide. We would love to be in any community. We really want to be invited in. So there's a separate tab on the website if you're interested. Communities, municipalities can reach out to us. We would love to come out and tour your community and get to know the neighbors and find ways to partner and collaborate.
So I can just go to a website. Is there any physical presence?
Oh, we have in McKees Rocks, we opened up we call it the Homeownership Hub. It's at 421 Chartiers Avenue. We have Tuesday and Thursday office hours. You can come down physically into McKees Rocks, stop by the hub, and you can talk to us in person. You can sign up in person and just learn more about what we do there. Fantastic.
But again, you touched upon how you are statewide in Pennsylvania. So you have talked to other communities, other counties.
We have. We've gone to Erie. We have gone to Westmoreland County. We've gone to Washington County. We've met with representatives from counties out east. And we're excited to share this. We think it's a really great opportunity. Really, and as we've talked to folks across the state, housing is something that's needed everywhere. It's not just an urban issue. It's a rural issue. It's a suburban issue. And frankly, everybody deserves quality, dignified housing to live in, regardless of where in the state you might live.
And just remember, Rob, to me, it's about quality living,
and
quality housing more than I think the word affordability gets a bad tag based on, how it's been treated in the past. And to Jay's point, rental dominates that. And sometimes, when you look at the rental market versus the homeowner market, there are two different attitudes, just flat out. And we're learning that as we talk to more folks that are aspiring to be homeowners, those who have come through the program and now are homeowners. It's a tool that I think we all, what Jay's offering is very important. Just a real quick story. During my travels yesterday, I was seeing another client, and she was a first-time home buyer, very young, which I was happy to see. But I was there because of some of the programs that the city is offering, and we were there. I was there with another nonprofit organization.
You know about the city of Pittsburgh? Yeah.
City of Pittsburgh, yeah. I'm sorry, yeah. And so when I talked to her, some of her issues were around some of her leakage in her roofs from the front porch and the rear porch, right? But then she brought up she had some electrical issues possibly because her bathroom was sparking, as an example. And I said, well, listen, that's why we're here, right? So we can help you with some of those.
Is it like the home repair program?
Sort of, but this is a little different. But they're trying to run it sort of like the home repair program for the city, in the sense they found some money and they wanted to help within the community. So, but to say that though, since she was a new homeowner, the first question I asked her was, hey, did you get a home inspection done? And she said no. And she started going through, because I seen other issues that should have been flagged before she bought this house, which was just a year ago. So I had some concerns because of her process. And then I had mentioned level equity building and some of the education courses that they offer. Now, granted, she does have her home, understanding, but the idea of her going through a program like this could have flagged a lot of things that could save her money down the road based on her, before she did the acquisition, getting into those additional costs after she closed on it and found out that she had other issues that she didn't know about. So these are important programs to have in our community. It's about educating those who are in the position currently of renting, and to understand and explore that home ownership is truly attainable. And level equity buildings is looking to close that gap, literally, between the community and a first home.
And no one else is doing this, right? I mean, you're the first.
We're it.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially at scale.
Well, why don't you give us your website one more time?
It's www.levelcommunities.org.
And then you guys, again, Tuesday, Thursday, you're in McKees Rocks.
421 Chartiers Avenue. It's the old PNC Bank building.
Is that I'm sorry, go ahead, Jay.
Right next to the Roxy Theater.
Is that the only location right now, and is there any future locations?
Right now, it is the only location. We're hoping and anticipating we would also be opening a location in Mount Oliver Borough later this year or early 2026.
Nice.
Well, I appreciate your time, guys. I know next up we have State Representative Lindsay Powell. She's going to be here to talk about her legislation and working with you guys, I believe, on a statewide solution.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And knowing how we got to the McKees Rocks project, I really applaud the state. State invested a lot in this project. So, Representative Powell will certainly know. She knows our journey, and knowing even how we got here from the standpoint of the programs that the state allowed us to use, that, having the first scattered RCAP, residential RCAP invested it this way is pretty powerful piece. And it's only because we didn't have, any designated pots of money for sale home ownership affordability. So kudos to the state and local, thanking the county, Allegheny County, for supporting us as well. So,
well, one of the things I think I talked to you guys earlier about was it's not just the state. This is more like a P3, like a public-private partnership. You
Correct.
guys have potential private investment that
Yes.
could be coming into
Yes.
this as well, correct?
Yes.
Stay tuned on that, maybe in the next podcast.
Absolutely.
Future podcast teaser.
It's really it's really catching a lot of momentum. I mean, we talked to a lot of state leaders, Representative Ward, others, Pittman. So this has really been getting a lot of interest, and so we know it's all important. I think our legislative leadership and caucuses know it's important, and it affects everybody throughout the Commonwealth.
Great.
I'll say just thank you for the time of highlighting the issue.
No problem.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Next up, we'll be joined by State Representative Lindsay Powell. Well, welcome back to Insight and Influence. I'm Rob Vescio from CNG Strategies. We are now joined by State Representative Lindsay Powell.
Hello,
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. And Jason Tigano, again, from Level Equity Building, is also still with us. Okay. We kicked Marc out. So we're talking about housing. I don't want to say affordable housing. What's the new term we're using today? What is the term?
Home ownership.
You're in the home ownership. So home ownership is the topic of today. State Representative Lindsay Powell has legislation pending.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for the opportunity to chat a little bit about what we're working on. Home ownership and attainable housing, that what we've been calling it, has been critically important, not just to the 21st district where we represent, but a rising crisis across the Commonwealth. One of those pieces of legislation is really targeted on home ownership. A lot of our programs at the state level really focus on affordable rental, which is still a massive need that we see. But more and more, there's been a lot of attention drawn towards making sure that we have opportunities for everyday Pennsylvanians to buy a home, create equity, and really make a sense of community where they live. This particular piece of legislation allows for the government to give grants to organizations working with those making between 60 to 120% AMI to get them ready for home ownership. That could be organizations like Level that do some of the work of rehabbing actual physical spaces. It could be groups that help to prepare people for home ownership, whether that's credit readiness, whether that's just general awareness about the program, just incentivizing the push that we know that we need to see more attainable, affordable home ownership opportunities across the state.
That's fantastic. So how's the response been?
It's been great. I'll say, some of the wonderful responses we've gotten is that this is an issue, whether you're in Pittsburgh, whether you're in Pottsville, whether you're in Philadelphia. Housing is a major issue, and having more opportunities for people to own their homes is something that I think that we've seen a lot of interest working, not just across the aisle, but in the upper chamber as well, to make it happen.
The Senate's the upper chamber.
The upper chamber, the upper room.
We had senators on this podcast before, so I'm sure they're going to enjoy that. So, Jason, what do you think? What do you see the process or any of the barriers that we're faced with?
We're grateful for the representative's leadership on legislation like this. Part of it came out of, Marc was alluding to it earlier in the podcast, but the state was gracious enough to work on a scattered site residential RCAP award for us on the McKees Rocks project, and that's really not what the RCAP is designed for. And so as we were talking with the representative and working with DCED, it really became, what can we do to start making smart legislation? And I think that this particular bill 275 is just that. It's not pigeonholed just to housing construction, as the representative so eloquently pointed out. It's for education, it's for owner occupied. We really tried to also connect it with DCED, the Department of Community and Economic Development, directly, to make sure that whatever we might be cooking up in our brains was actually something that DCED could implement, that the funds could actually hit the street in the way that we all knew it needed to. Because sometimes we've all been around the table long enough to know that, legislation is created with great intentions, and somewhere between A and B, when it gets implemented, it doesn't always hit the street the way we need it to. And so, again, just the leadership that you've shown around, not just introducing the legislation and being willing to hear this story out that we're telling, but, really creating the caucus, sitting with DCED. I mean, you're doing all the things that are going to make a change in Pennsylvania for us.
Well, you're changing the narrative on housing is what you're doing.
It's a team effort. I mean, I think across different nonprofits like Level, but also just community members, it is high time that we really take this housing crisis seriously. I think oftentimes we think about it as just maybe rising homelessness, but the opportunity to grow in your community, the opportunity to own in your community is becoming much less of a reality for so many folks. And so where I'm excited that we've got so many partners at the table that want to do this critical work.
Yeah, and you're building wealth,
Absolutely.
with this program.
Absolutely.
There was a study done by CNN. They released it a few months ago, and we could send it if you wanted to tag it. But the average net worth of a renter is about $10,400. The average net worth of a homeowner is $400,000.
Wow. And you're also taking dilapidated properties off the rolls.
Yeah.
And putting them on the tax
putting them back on the tax
So you're
rolls.
cleaning up. So people are going to take care of that. I mean, it's an incredible idea and program. What are we? So what are the challenges? What are we up against? To try to get something like this over the finish line.
I mean, there are challenges. First and foremost, I think getting everyone on board that this is not just a handout to folks, but this is an opportunity to build wealth and build our economy. I think that is critically important for people to understand. This is not just about individual A getting a home. This is about growing our neighborhoods. This is about creating generational wealth. This is about changing a narrative for our state. Our governor often talks about how he wants to be competitive, and we look around at Ohio, we look at Maryland, we look at West Virginia, and they've got West Virginia, they've got home ownership programs. They are investing in housing, and it doesn't just again allow for that individual family to be housed, but they're growing their wealth for their state. And so I think getting everyone on the narrative that this is not just a moral incentive or a moral imperative, that this is there's an economic case behind it is important. To do some of that work, we created a housing caucus at the state level, really meant to be a space for legislators on both sides of the aisle to bring forward their housing issues, their housing questions, and have it be a working group where we can come up with implementable and impactful solutions. Caucuses, unfortunately, in Harrisburg tend to be, sometimes a little bit of just a gathering of folks who have a like-minded interest, but we really wanted to focus this on what are some things that we can tangibly do, whether that's bringing education and sharing resources and tools, like how do we get a level out in Schuylkill County? How do we get some of the programs that we see in Philadelphia out to, Center County? It could be information sharing, but also partnering with other legislators to create legislation that will see its day, not just in the Senate, but also on the governor's desk.
And this is definitely bipartisan. I mean, what you're talking about, we've had feedback from Republicans who they need it, and they need it in some of these areas. I mean, I was talking to Senate Majority Leader Joe Pittman, Indiana County. You're looking at these outside counties. It's a solution. Yeah. And it looks different everywhere.
I think that's the thing that's important to raise is, our housing crisis in Pittsburgh looks very different from our co-chair, our Republican co-chair, Representative Twardzik, who represents Schuylkill County.
Right.
His housing crisis is very different, but it doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a space where we're thoughtfully and intentionally thinking about solutions that make sense for Pittsburgh and make sense for Schuylkill as well.
Incredible. But getting back to level, and how does this intersect with the legislation? The legislation she's proposed. So how does it work with your program?
So in part, it really starts to create the pot of money that's needed at the state level to start making investments on this scale. Just to give everyone sort of a frame of reference, HUD money that comes mostly directly to the counties. It doesn't really go to the Commonwealth. It's not a pass-through, but in 2024, HUD spent $2.4 billion on housing and rental support programs. So this is every year. This budget tends to be reoccurring. There is no pot of money for home ownership. And so, we just keep spending the money year after year to renew rentals that really don't produce the deep impacts that Representative Powell was alluding to earlier. And so as we try to find these ways to create these pots of money that, I think the number is something like we need 300,000+ units across the state. I think we need 30 to 40,000 units in Allegheny County in the city of Pittsburgh. These numbers start to get into the billions of dollars. These are funds that we don't have this money sitting around, but we need to create these funds.
Right. But
and I think
long term, not to interrupt, but long term, you're helping bringing back people to the city.
Well, this is it. And it's an investment. I think Representative Powell touched on it earlier, but I think this is really part of what we're excited about with this is it's not a handout to an individual. It's not necessarily a grant, and we don't want it to be thought of that way. We're really investing in Pennsylvanians owning a part of Pennsylvania. right? And we're investing in our people.
Well, you're
And when
re-energizing the city.
Absolutely.
And when we do that, the returns come based on the taxes. It's things like kids are more likely to stay in the school district and finish in the school district. So we're supporting the school district as well as the city, as well as the county and the tax base. And there's other additional benefits that come from home ownership around caring about your community and participation in community events and things that really start to shape the fabric of a neighborhood that go back to what Marc was talking about with quality living. And these things are all really truly interconnected to how we have a quality of life and why every Pennsylvanian deserves an opportunity to have a good quality of life and build equity for their families.
So what's your bill number again?
275.
So House Bill 275. We want to make sure our listeners, help advocate for it, right? Get the word out.
Absolutely.
Is there anything they can do to help? Like, is there any barriers or anyone we need to work on?
Yeah, I mean, getting the word out is critical. Making sure that you're calling your legislators, both in the House and Senate, that we want to see home ownership solutions. We want to see attainable housing solutions. Whether it's calling for this bill, other bills that we've worked on in a bipartisan manner with Representative Twardzik, with other members of the Republican caucus. We need to be serious about this issue. We need to be intentional about this issue, and it's high time that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania really invest in housing and invest in Pennsylvanians in this way.
I really appreciate everyone's time, by the way. This is an incredible issue, and the solution you guys have put forth, I think, is definitely it's the new way, hopefully, right?
You.
And not just here, I mean, across the country, right? You're spurring something that's different.
We hope so.
Can I ask that question, though? Is there other parts of the country doing anything like this?
Not in its entirety.
Okay.
We've had assessments done. There are components of what we're doing that are being replicated in other parts of the country, but as a holistic model on how we're approaching this, there's really not anything else like it.
You heard it right here in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely.
The Powell plan.
Coins here.
Yes.
Right?
Coin here, right here. You heard it. Jason, you talked about a pot of money. Representative Powell's bill will help create that set aside within state government. Why don't you walk us through how that would work? Yeah.
So the closing of the gap, as we sort of refer to it, is really the hardest problem and what we're trying to solve within this systemic problem. Usually banks will write the buyer to the money. And what we're trying to do is approach this with more of a common sense lending viewpoint. So we're writing the money to the buyer. We sort of say it earlier, or colloquially, folks probably know, but folks around here are paying somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500 a month in rent, and that could really be a mortgage payment for a lot of people. And so it's really trying to it's the set aside to access capital. It's going to help us do construction projects, but the money ends up really supporting the buyer and their ability to obtain the mortgage. The bank is only going to write a mortgage to a certain dollar amount for any of us based on what we can afford and what the bank thinks we can pay back. And so as we're approaching banks with our buyers and they've gone through the education and they've qualified in all the processes, there are down payment programs that exist that we can get down payment assistance money for. So that's already out there. What we really need are these programs that will help us to acquire these vacant tax delinquent properties, because there's literally tens of thousands of them in Allegheny County. There's probably hundreds of thousands across the Commonwealth. And it's really hard for our communities to get a handle on who owns this property, how tax delinquent is it, how can we make an acquisition for it. So part of what Level wants to do is really do this at scale and start to really look at our communities, make these strategic acquisitions that we know we can rehab or build new construction on these sites. And then again, have that pot of money there that we know once the buyer's ready and prepared, they'll have that ability to get the mortgage and we can sell them the house.
There you go.
Absolutely.
The Powell plan.
Done and done. Done and done.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Insight and Influence. To learn more about C&G strategies and to access previous editions, visit our website at cgstrategiespa.com.